Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special spooky season episode of Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the podcast where we watch, review, and discuss every horror movie on Netflix. I'm Patrick, and we are here today with a franchise review of the entire Jaws franchise, 3/4 of which is on Netflix right now. And to go on this special journey with me today, I've recruited two Amon All-Star guests who have never actually met before. We have both Allyson-with-a-Y.
Hello.
And Allison-with-an-I.
There she is.
We never thought this would happen, that you two would meet.
Years in the making.
Allison sandwich.
The best kind of sandwich.
Yes.
Name a more iconic pairing. Well, happy spooky season, you all. It's Halloween in, just like 5 days here. We're going to even get this episode out before Halloween so that everybody can enjoy it. And before we dig into the Jaws franchise, we're going to do our standard horror catch-up. Allison-with-an-I, I know that you told us you've been doing a lot of spooky stuff this spooky season, so tell us about it.
I have. I've gone really hard in the paint in this spooky season.
Love it.
I don't need an excuse to watch and consume horror because I do it all year round, but this year has really been punctuated. So a couple of the noteworthy things I've watched and read, Blink Twice. Obviously, we're going to call that horror because it is. And what's more terrifying than that?
Wait, what's Blink Twice?
Oh.
I feel like this is true crime since I haven't heard of it.
Oh, no. It's a movie made by Zoe Kravitz.
Oh, yes, with Channing Tatum.
Yeah, that's got some
I have heard
pretty
this
topical nods to some scary patriarchal abuse supported by the systems at large situations that we're dealing with now. No, most notably Epstein and Diddy. So yeah, that was terrifying because I think it's not too far-fetched.
Is that on streaming now, or did you see it in theater?
I watched it at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, very
through
good.
my Fire Stick. That's jailbroken.
Okay, very good.
Try not to incriminate myself too much.
Yeah, illicit activity. We can cut that out.
FBI, don't list my personal FBI agent earmuffs.
They might be listening to Amon just because they're probably after Chris for some reason.
Oh, that would
boy.
make a lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
Poor Chris. Sorry, Chris. Drawing more attention to you. I went and saw Alien Romulus, which I thought was so good and so much fun. Was a little cringed by the couple callback lines, but you know what would it be without them? You know, so
A better movie, maybe.
Love-hate relationship with that. The Scream that came out last year, I somehow just missed that.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and now I'm on the Scream Reddit group because it's just a lot of fun over there.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never explored that. I do like that franchise a lot. I think I watched basically the whole thing last year, watch/rewatch to prepare for the new one. And the new one was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Woman of the Hour. I know that you guys reviewed that last week, was it? Last episode? Mm-hmm. That went through me for a loop in the worst kind of way. Mm-hmm. One of the more terrifying movies that I think I've seen ever. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but did make me feel a little bit like the movie Men made me feel, which I also helped review with Iman a year or so ago. Would recommend. And then 2 nights ago, saw a movie that I am obsessed with and I'm going to recommend with flying colors called Strange Darling.
Huh. Haven't heard of that one.
Oh my God. It is so good. It is really well made. It's twisty. Mm-hmm. It's real. It's just, you gotta put it on the list somewhere. It's not a Netflix.
Strange Darling.
Strange Darling.
What's the premise?
A one-night stand turns into a murderous frenzy.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm intrigued.
It's really good.
I'm intrigued.
I've been reading a lot of stuff. I finished a book called This Thing Between Us. Mm-hmm. I read Cujo for the first time ever.
Oh.
And oh my God.
That might have been my first Stephen King read, actually.
Really?
Yeah, way back in the day.
I think my first Stephen King read was The Stand.
Oh, God.
I know.
Oh, God.
heavy one.
I just read that for the first time recently and was not impressed, but I've discussed that on the show previously.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could be two shows by itself.
Oh, yeah.
The
easily.
book and the movie.
Easily, yeah.
The September House, which I just finished, which was really good. And I actually am going to recommend this to Allison based on what I know about you, which is so little since we've never met before.
Yeah, never.
But I think that you would enjoy it. And then book The Long Walk. We've all heard of that. Read that for the first time. And In the Tall Grass, which I read in one quick sitting the other night when I couldn't sleep.
Which is Stephen King too, right?
And Joe Hill.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Short
right,
story.
right.
80 pages.
Yeah. And there's also a Netflix movie, I think.
Which was terrible.
Is that the one with Patrick
really?
Wilson?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't remember because I hated it.
Yeah, I remember if it is that
Purged it from my
movie. I
memory.
remember it not being very good.
Well, I don't think I realized, and in fact I didn't, that it was a book that Stephen King and Joe Hill wrote.
I didn't know
before I saw the movie. I went into the movie thinking it was a standalone movie that was made horribly.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if it would have been more helpful for me to have read the book or I would feel even more disappointed after reading the book and seeing the movie, which I didn't think was possible because it was really bad.
It does star Patrick Wilson, and it's directed by Vincenzo Natali, who was a frequent director on Hannibal, the TV series.
Oh.
Which Allyson-with-a-Y and I are big fans of. Big fans of.
So that covers all the content that I've been consuming.
Excellent. You are doing well this
Yeah.
spooky season.
You know?
Productive.
I got a lot of time.
Yeah. Allison with a Y, how about you? I mean, we recorded our last episode not too long ago, but I think you said you've had some more spooky activities since then.
Well, I completely blanked last time we were recording and forgot to mention there are a few movies that I saw recently that I really enjoyed. I watched on Patrick and I's way back from Italy, very long plane ride. I watched Lisa Frankenstein, which was really cute. It was just a really fun movie. I mean, great for spooky season for people who don't like anything that's like too heavy. It's campy. It's fun. Great soundtrack. It's all 80s songs. And it was a delightful watch. It's kind of like that classic girl Frankenstein's a boyfriend for herself. And it's very fun. And then it's not a spooky movie, but there are spooky and Halloween themes around it. I finally watched Coco and I cried like a baby and like trying not to like heavily sob in this plane like next to a stranger. It was so good. And it's obviously all like centered around Dia de los Muertos and it was really beautiful. And then I watched A Quiet Place Day One, and I was surprised at how much I liked it. It was very well done, very effective. It was one of those prequels that doesn't rely too heavily on bringing back specific callbacks or maybe call forwards, I don't know, to the previous films, and just kind of was a solid standalone. You don't have to see the other films at all to appreciate it, and very, very well done acting, like great storytelling.
So you're saying no one told one of the aliens to leave her alone, you bitch?
Right.
Yeah.
Spoilers for
Thank
Alien
God.
Romulus,
Yeah.
I guess.
I started Quiet Place Day One, and I didn't not finish it because I didn't like it. I had been watching the Quiet Place movies with my daughter, and we ran out of time to finish it.
Yeah.
But from what I saw, it looked really good. I'm going to get back to it like this weekend.
I would
Thanks for
recommend
reminding
it.
me.
Yeah. It really surprised me. I watched it because I needed something to do, and it was good. It was good.
Good. Patrick, how about you?
I've been doing so much spooky stuff this spooky season. I'm going to focus on reading, though, because like you, Allison, with an I, I have also just been reading a ton this Halloween. I read Josh Malerman's new book, Incidents Around the House. And if you listen to our Bird Box episode from a million years ago, you know I was a big fan of the book Bird Box. But I actually really think this newest one is the strongest one of his that I've read yet. it's about a young girl who has her parents have some issues going on, some tension between them, and she starts to see a ghostly character named Other Mommy, who may or may not be sort of the manifestation of her mother's life as her mother wishes her life had turned out. It's very dark. It's very well told from the point of view of this little girl. The audiobook is very well read by a narrator who makes you feel like you are in this, very young kid's head. And the ending was very dark, and I liked it a lot.
I'm on the 13-week wait list for that.
Oh, okay.
On the Libby app.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I'm dying to read it.
Okay, yeah. Check in when you read it, 'cause I would love to discuss it. I actually hopped on Reddit afterwards because the ending really threw me for a loop, honestly, and I kind of had to interact with other people's thoughts on it to make sense of what I just experienced. I also want to give a shout out to the manga series PTSD Radio, which was recommended to me by listener Erica a long time ago, and I finally caught up to it. She also very, very kindly included a copy of it in a lovely care package that she sent for me and Chris and Steven recently. Aww. So I'm going to make sure I pass on volume 1 to one of them, because I want to evangelize for this to everyone now. It feels kind of like, what do they call those? Two-sentence horror stories. They're all very, very short little vignettes, maybe sometimes just 3, 5, sometimes 10 pages, and they all feel very nightmarish. There's just kind of a sting of a punchline to each of them, and they feel very disconnected at first, and then you realize there's this thread to the narrative, and it's very surreal, very dreamlike, and I was just loving that. Last thing I'll give a shout out to is I started reading Paul Tremblay's new book, Horror Movie, and this is the author who wrote the book that Knock at the Cabin was based on, which was originally titled The Cabin at the End of the World.
Great book. Oh, yeah.
Great book. Do you read Head Full of Ghosts?
Of course.
Yeah.
Paul Tremblay's amazing.
He's incredible. Yeah. And this new one, I'm only about 20% of the way through, but it's great so far. It's about this guy who made a horror movie called Horror Movie with his friends on a low budget, and something infamous happened during the production of the film that I haven't quite learned what it is yet, and he in the present is now working with people to make a reboot of this film that nobody ever saw, but that became a cult kind of classic because of whatever infamous thing happened during the production. And it's very It's interestingly structured and very enthralling so far. So big shout out for that. And then the last thing I will plug again, and I promise I'll only do this for a couple more episodes, is my own thing, my comic book, Our House, which is a short horror story that came out about a week ago. It's something that I have been working on for a long time, and I'm really proud of and would love our listeners to check out. You can get a copy for $6, I think, is the shipping if I'm shipping it to you. And if you're interested, just DM us on social media and I'll send you the info. I just need your address and I'll send you payment info. Would love to get that to you. So find us at Amoncast, EHMONcast, on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter if you want to track down a copy of that.
I want a copy.
Okay, you can get one. You just have to DM me on social media.
Let's do this the hard way.
All right, speaking of doing things the hard way, let's talk about the Jaws franchise.
Amazing segue.
And I think we're going to do it the hard way in the sense that I was thinking about, not really joked to Allison a few times that we should maybe just do this in reverse order so that we can end on a high note. But I think it just makes more sense to start at the beginning because this very much does follow some of the same characters really to the end of the franchise. So we'll start from the beginning. Jaws, 1975. Of course, a fucking stone cold classic.
Masterpiece.
And I'm curious, what was each of your kind of relationship to this franchise? Had you even seen the original Jaws? Had you seen any of the sequels before embarking on this journey?
I saw the original Jaws when I was a kid. And I remember it definitely giving me a fear of going into the ocean, which I still kind of have to this day. Not specifically shark related, just, fish in general.
Saltwater things.
But I don't think I had seen any of the sequel or any of the other ones.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
Oh, I've seen Jaws. Jaws is one of my comfort movies. Oh, funny enough. And I can't remember the first time that I saw Jaws, but I remember, as so many people did, having this huge, I mean, it created this huge fear of the ocean in a way that like no other film had done before. And I remember I was young enough that I was like scared of the bathtub or like pools. You know what I mean?
Pools,
like pools.
yes.
You're like, I'm not going in the deep end. Like I can't. And and I was, most scared of sharks. It wasn't really the fish, like you said, Allison. It was just sharks and great white sharks. And I was so afraid that I did not really step foot in the ocean until I turned 30.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I went, and I feel embarrassed saying that now, but like it's a legit fear.
Yeah.
It's an apex predator, and the ocean itself is powerful and scary, and to be respected and revered. And like some people just avoid it. And I was one of them. But I went on this trip to the Cayman Islands Christmas time when I was 30, and it was so beautiful. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done being scared. And I went snorkeling for the first time, and it has now become my favorite thing to do. Like my perfect vacation is like a snorkeling vacation. Like I want to get scuba certified. And I think since then, I've just decided to like learn a lot about sharks. And they're now my favorite animal.
I love sharks.
Like I have a shark
too.
tracker on my phone, and I like watch
Whoa.
the sharks like go up and down the East Coast, and they have sea turtles on there now, which was like such an exciting addition this year for all of us like search users. But I've just really come to like revere and respect the shit out of them and their place in the ecosystem, and like learn a dorky amount about sharks. And it really does counteract like any fear that you might have, because when you have facts that you're working with, it's like you're not making up a fantasy anymore.
Exactly.
Fairy tale about getting eaten by a shark. But it's happening. It's still happening, and it's getting worse.
Really? They're eating more people?
Well,
Yeah. Well,
climate change is changing everything
patterns.
Okay.
for the
So-
ecosystem. Yeah.
in 2023, I was looking this up, there were more fatal shark attacks than the average of previous years. So, average year, there's 6 fatal shark attacks. Last year, there were 13, which is significant.
Yep.
There are anywhere between 60 to 80 unprovoked shark attacks on humans a year.
Yeah.
And that is starting to go up because of their different migration patterns.
Yeah.
The changing migration patterns.
Well, and anecdotally, my family has been going to Cape Cod for the last 55 years. For the first 40 years, they rented the same cottage on the same beach with the same neighbors that were there the same week. So it was very much like a community. And swimming in the ocean, high tide, low tide, whatever, was a thing. Like you just did that. And now Cape Cod is just inundated with white sharks. So it's completely changed, and it's happened kind of rapidly.
Yeah.
So is it just that warmer water is pushing them further north than they would usually be into more populated areas?
Yeah, it's that the water is staying warmer longer through the season.
Yeah.
So usually they would have migrated north up to Canada way earlier. But because the water is staying warmer in southern places longer, they're just hanging out.
Wow.
So it's really changing a lot. It's changing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And a lot of Cape Cod natives, I follow a lot of Cape Cod content creators that talk about sharks and that surf and, get clams and lobsters and stuff. And they've really had to change so many of their habits quickly to adapt to this changing situation. So,
Wow.
but it's our fault.
Yeah, of course, as most things are.
Yep.
Allison had been saying they were going to share shark facts on this episode, and I'm sure you are still going to. But now we also have a
I know.
repository of
You do.
information.
You didn't know you were getting
that. Yeah.
I was like, when you guys asked me to help guest on this one, I'm like, I don't think they know that I'm a shark nerd.
Well,
I am thrilled to be doing this.
right. Yeah. I just invited you because I figured it would be fun, but I didn't know that you had this deep personal connection, and also
do.
this very personal
I
journey
love
with
that.
the water and your relationship to it.
One more fun fact.
Yes.
The first fatal shark attack on Cape Cod in 80 years was in 2018.
Whoa.
So that's still a long time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not as gross as it sounds, in the changing numbers, but it's happening.
Right.
There's still bites and near misses.
Wow. Yeah, I had seen Jaws the original before, but I think it was when I was in like high school and kind of in my like, let's watch all the great movies when I was getting into film for the first time. And I hadn't seen it since then. And it's something I've been wanting to rewatch for, I would say, probably 5 to 10 years. And I just keep not doing it. So I was grateful to have the opportunity to revisit it for this, have a reason to revisit it. And I had never seen any of the sequels before, so we'll get into that. But before we get into the movies, I'm also curious just about like how y'all feel about shark movies in general, because I will say I don't give a shit. Like, sharks actually not that scary to me. Like, I don't spend a ton of time in the water. I don't even like swimming in the ocean that much. I love our Great Lakes here in Michigan. I love swimming in those. I don't like the big waves and the salt in your mouth and all that shit. Like, I'll get in the water if I'm at an ocean, but I'm never going to go deep enough for a shark to be something that enters my mind. So it's just not something that's fundamentally scary to me. Like, what about you two?
I think we are spoiled by the Great Lakes because once you've spent a lot of time in Lake Michigan and you get everything you need out of it without anything you don't need. It's like, yeah, the ocean's cool, but have you swam in Lake Michigan?
Right.
I too don't get to the ocean very often. I don't love, again, it's so powerful. There are so many things that can take you down, and it's just this huge beast, you know? So the ocean is not my preference, but again, like if I'm going to go somewhere tropical and snorkel, that's a whole different thing than just like, I was in Long Beach last summer. And went to the beach in the Pacific and just had no real interest in getting in. It was freezing. There were stingrays everywhere. Ooh. It was like stingray season or something. And I'm just kind of like, I'm all set, Can I have like a dry suit and like some shoes? Otherwise, I'm good on that. Yeah, that's kind of how I am.
Do you have other shark movies gotten you like Jaws did?
I watch every shark movie that ever comes out.
All right.
All of them.
Okay.
Because again, like I love to see the commentary because they are so horrific, and I love to see what different movies try to do with that fear. Most of them are so bad. I liked Under Paris. I thought that was a great movie. Yeah. I mean, again, like the bar is very low for good shark movies. Deep Blue Sea is still like one of the best shark movies out there. Like, it's a banger.
Yeah.
It's LL Cool J is that chef. It's just like delivered so many quotable lines.
Yeah.
I love that movie. But yeah, I mean, I'll watch any and all shark movies that come out. It's not like I'm not running to the theater to see them. But as soon as I see them available for free.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Allyson-with-a-Y shark movies. I have to keep remembering to throw in the middle letter that distinguishes you from each other.
I don't generally like shark movies because I find them to be awful propaganda, anti-shark propaganda. And as another shark lover, it's really upsetting how they've shifted people's views of sharks in general to be so negative. Obviously, you want to respect these massive, powerful creatures, but I don't love the fear-mongering in shark films. And obviously, like, horror isn't generally based in, like, realistic things, but there's something about taking villainizing animals that don't necessarily deserve to be villainized the way they are in horror. That tends to really upset me in general. I also feel very strongly about how wolves are portrayed in films too, but they have even less merit to be villainized than sharks do. So, there's over 500 species of sharks. Shark fact.
Shark fact. Oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna do like a sound drop every time there's a shark fact. And you know what the sound drop is gonna be? It's gonna be the fucking shark growling from Jaws 3, because that motherfucker growls.
Yeah,
and I wanted to get that sound in this episode. We'll talk about it more when we get to the movie, but we're gonna have a shark growl every time there's a shark fact. So please hit us with the shark fact.
Shark fact: there are over 500 species of sharks, and there are only about a dozen of those species that are actually known to attack humans.
Yeah.
Most are very gentle.
And of that dozen, there's really only like 3.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like a dozen
that have
who
ever been a man killer. Man killer.
Yeah, they're just not. Sharks as a whole are not a threat to people.
They are not. That. They're just sharking.
They're just sharking.
We're getting in their home.
Yeah.
This is terrible to bring up, but there was that shark attack last year in the Red Sea, and don't watch the graphic content is out there. Would not recommend. It's terrible. But they caught the shark, and and they stoned it to death.
What?
They hoisted it up and stoned it to
That's
death.
What the hell?
barbaric.
2022 or 2023. And that just goes to your point of like this anti-shark propaganda and these villainizing of these creatures that are literally just doing what they were built to do, which is like swim, eat, reproduce.
Yeah.
That's it. Sleep.
Wow.
That's it.
And like it's so well known. Well, it's the information is out there at this point that most shark attacks are mistaken identity.
Yeah.
Like they, the way like people look on a surfboard kind of looks like a seal if you're looking up. It's just it's.
And the cases that aren't that it isn't just an investigatory bite, and there are multiple attacks again. It's got something to do with what we're doing as humans. Like these animals are responding to outside changes. If they had it their way and none of us and animals just ruled the planet, this wouldn't be.
We'd be okay.
They'd be
this wouldn't
okay.
be a problem.
They wouldn't have to adapt to anything weird
Yeah.
and act out of character or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to switch now from shark fact to mostly shark fiction. Like, still throw in your shark facts along the way, but we're going to get into the Jaws franchise here. As normal with our franchise review episodes, we are not going to have a spoiler room for any of these movies, just because we're going to be doing shorter capsule reviews today, and it just doesn't really make sense to distinguish spoiler from non-spoiler. These movies have been out for decades. If you don't want to be spoiled, go watch the movies before you listen to our reviews here. So we're going to go movie by movie, and we'll do our traditional view it, cue it, or screw it after each one. And then at the end of the 4 movies, we'll also give a view, cue, or screw to Jaws, the franchise as a whole. This whole experience that we've gone on over the last month or so. So let's jump in with Jaws, 1975, directed by Steven Spielberg. As Allyson-with-an-I said before, just kind of generally regarded as a stone cold classic, and man, it still goes hard. That's what I have to say.
50th anniversary too.
Oh wow. Yeah, well, coming up
next year.
Yeah, and this was early for Spielberg too. Yeah, this was the this was the 3rd feature he had directed.
Wow.
He did Duel, which was made for TV, which I really want to see because I've been reading some Richard Matheson recently, and it's based on that. And then he had one more movie, The Sugarland Express, and then went right into Jaws, just a mega fucking hit that dominated American culture, and then went on to do Close Encounters, Raiders, E.T., Indiana Jones. Like, just that early run for him is insane. But, watching this movie, like, you get why it just cemented him as one of the biggest directors out there. Like, it works so well. The tension is so intense. The 3 main characters that you have are so iconic, which come from the Peter Benchley's book, but also like the relationships between them are so fantastic. Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw are just fantastic and such a great central trio. It's just you can't really ask for more out of a thriller movie or an action movie or a horror movie, because this works on almost all those genre levels. Allyson-with-a-Y, how did you feel watching it this time around?
I feel like I'm going to have an unpopular opinion.
Yes, we love hot takes. Hot takes on Amon? Surely not.
It didn't hit for me. I appreciate the storytelling, but once it got to the actual, when we finally really saw the shark, I just couldn't get past how unrealistic the behavior was.
Oh, you wanted shark fact. You had too much shark fiction.
Right. The menacing, like eating a boat. I just, it took me out of it. And like, I can, if I transport myself back to 1975, I can see why this hit so hard. But it just doesn't anymore. It's like I have too much knowledge.
You know too much, yeah.
I know too much. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that when you say you're going to have an unpopular opinion, it just reminds me of our Halloween franchise ep, where like I think pretty much all of us were lukewarm at best on the original Halloween, and we're still getting dragged for that. Like, people still listen to that episode because the franchise review episodes are easy entry points for listening to this podcast. And yeah, people still are sometimes like, these aren't real horror fans because they don't like Halloween. But so just saying, like, hot takes on iconic franchises are welcome.
That being said, I mean, I still think, the acting is phenomenal throughout it. I do like the storytelling. I love the human aspect of it. Like the human aspect, I mean, the real villain's kind of the mayor. And I love that aspect of it. I think that's great because that hits so real today, like profit over people.
Look the other way.
Exactly. Like if there is a threat, but it gets in the way of, the economy, then you just ignore it. So from that lens, I really enjoy it. From the shark lens, not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the mayor stuff hit hard to me this time, too. I mean, because, whatever. If you haven't seen Jaws before, the basic idea is the shark is killing people on the beach, and it's a resort town, it's a vacation town, and the mayor does not want to shut down the beach, despite the clear, obvious threat of the shark because it's going to lose the town money over 4th of July weekend. And this is my Chris hot take. The real villain of the movie is capitalism.
Well, isn't that always the real villain?
Yeah, because frankly, they wouldn't have had to go do this shit if they had just shut down the beach. Like, the shark would have gone away. Eventually, it would have found somewhere else to hang out. And, like, our main trio would not have had to go out on the fucking boat. Quint wouldn't have had to fucking die if not for the mayor insisting on keeping the beaches open, having to make the money. Like, you could have just closed the beach, waited for it all to be resolved. And it's kind of, I don't think it's supposed to work on this thematic level, but it's weirdly moving. Do I want to say moving to me? I don't know if it's quite moving, but it's more impactful on that level, that it's just like they're forced to go on this quest that really wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
Allison-with-an-I, how is this watch for you?
Given that I've seen this movie a lot of times, this watch didn't feel a lot different than any other except the first time, obviously, which I, again, don't remember, unfortunately. I love this movie. I really do. I love that, again, it was the first of its kind. I don't think that there was another real, like, I'm sure I could be wrong about this, but blockbuster apex predator movie before this.
Right.
And I love that part of it, like they broke some ground there. Not necessarily in a good way, but in a way that, that's what good film and storytelling is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Acting, obviously, unreal. Richard Dreyfuss, like, come on. Mm-hmm. I know. I'm 40 now because I'm like, he's so hot. And
I was so into Richard Dreyfuss.
Like, Shark King, scientist, yes, those glasses, all of it. Love you.
He's a little cutie for sure.
What a cutie pie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, and then even watching the, like, from a 2024 perspective, where modern relationships have changed, like watching the dynamic between the husband and wife was really cool. And I think they sort of had like a dynamic that was before their time a little bit. Yeah. Like, she was a powerful female figure. Mm-hmm. And, she had just enough influence. She had a voice. And, like, I kind of focused on those things this watch around, just, like, not so much the story anymore or the terrible animatronic shark, which it is terrible. And not spoiler alert, it doesn't get any better in the next 3 films. In some cases, it gets a lot worse.
Yes.
Like, you had 10 years almost to make this better, and it didn't get better.
So that's interesting about the shark, because it doesn't look perfect, but to me, I still think it looks pretty impressive, and I think they shoot around it enough where you don't see it, you almost never see it long enough to be like, okay, that's a plastic shark. Like, it's usually seen pretty briefly, and when it does, it still works pretty well for me for a 50-year-old movie.
It is
I
definitely
think the first
best-looking
shark was the best of all 4.
Oh, for sure.
It somehow got worse, is what I'm saying. Like, the first one was great, and like you just said, it wasn't in your face bad.
Yeah.
It's just glimpses.
They know their
shadows
limitations
and lurking and dread.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, this movie will forever remain in my top 50. Yeah. It's just a classic.
Yeah. Allison-with-a-Y, to your point from before, so you said because you know the reality of sharks, this doesn't feel as, like, impactful to you. And I guess even though we have different opinions on if we like the movie or not, I do agree, and it's kind of why I have trouble understanding why people got so scared by this, because I'm just like, okay, this doesn't seem that realistic. Like, the shark eating the boat is awesome, but it does. I highly doubt. Not that I know that much about sharks. Certainly not compared to you two. But I'm like, I highly doubt that a shark would do that in real life. But it's very entertaining to me for a movie. So it's just so interesting. I mean, because it was widely known. The tagline was, "You'll never go back in the water again," I think. And I think it was well known after the movie that there was like widespread public paranoia about swimming and sharks because of this. And to me, it's just fun. The shark is like a fun movie monster. It doesn't like really connect to reality for me, I guess. So like, I agree with you. But then also like, Allison-with-an-I was fucking terrified because of this.
Oh, yeah.
So you were part of the folks who had that response.
Yeah, and I think the whole, like I said, I have anecdotal, like, my family went to Cape Cod every year. This took place in Martha's Vineyard, you know, like, those are the same waters. So I think it was just it hit home a little bit differently for me because it was, like, not so many steps away from reality. You know, like, this is a place my family goes to. These are the waters we swim in.
Yeah.
No one has ever thought about being afraid of this before. Like, no one even thought about sharks on Cape Cod, like 75 years ago, 50 years ago. I mean, it was like a fleeting thought, but now it's like what people talk about, you know, when you're there. It's like the number one thing. There's signs everywhere and flags. And so I think it terrified me because it was a little bit closer to reality than somebody living, you know, in the middle of the country or somebody who spend time in the ocean.
And there's so many great scenes on the beach where it's just like there's so many sort of there's so much bait introduced into the water essentially, and it's just the tension of, oh, is it going to be like this old couple, or is it going to be like this kid on the boat, or is it going to be what's his name, Brody's kid on his little boat in the pond where he was supposed to be safe. It's just like fraught with tension and also like fun in that sense because, you know, Spielberg's having fun and you can tell that he's just like, okay, all right, fuckers, here's like 7 different possible outcomes. What's gonna happen?
Can we talk about the fact that the first 3 victims of the shark are a teenage girl, a dog, and a little boy?
Yeah,
that is ballsy to make those the
first
first victims for a film.
It is, yeah.
I was mortified. Like, the dog, you don't see anything, luckily, with the dog, but like that was really upsetting. And then the kid, I was like, I cannot believe they just killed off a child. 70s were a different time though for children. So, and
it's like a kind of a little kid, right? It's like, I want to say he's like
less
6
than 10.
or something.
Like 8.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that speaks to, it's not a monster. It's an apex predator. They do not discriminate.
No.
It's not like it's not a monster that you think, well, they have to have some sort of moral code.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shark.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which makes it even more like he did cross that line, but it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
What was more shocking was that the movie crossed that line.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I also want to give a big shout out to like the back third of this movie. And again, I'm assuming this comes from the novel too. But it's such an interesting creative choice to have this movie that takes place very much on the beach with a big supporting cast. You got the mayor and the Brody's family, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And then it's just these 3 guys on a boat for like the last third of it, and it's just such a sharp change in the setting and the nature of the interactions between the characters because these 3 guys don't necessarily get along too well, and it's just such an interesting narrative for the 3 of them to play with, and it feels so much more intense because they're so isolated and so alone. Creates that great setup for the iconic Quint monologue, which he fucking kills. You know, he just reads the shit out of that, and it's kind of a ballsy shift in the movie, and it works so well. It really hit me this time.
I do appreciate that section of the film for like just how vulnerable it made these people. And as an audience member, just feeling that dread and having that intense awareness of, if this goes south, there is no escape.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which it did.
Yeah.
So south.
Yeah.
Poor Quint.
Oh, poor Quint.
After that USS Indianapolis, I'm like, you made it through that?
Yeah.
Only to be taken out by Jaws. Oh, sad.
I saw a funny Reddit post. Explain the plot poorly. Negligent government official feeds the wildlife. I loved it.
Yep, that's accurate. All right, well, as I said, we're kind of keeping a faster pace than usual today. Unless anybody has any other big kind of thoughts or takeaways they want to share before we review.
I have a fun little story kind of related to this film.
Yeah.
So one time when I was younger, I asked my dad if he had any ghost stories. And one of the ones that he shared with me was about the one time he used a Ouija board. It would have been the late 70s. And he was, drunk with his friends or probably high. I don't know. It was the 70s. And they were using a Ouija board and they asked if there was anybody coming through. And the name they got was Robert Shaw. And they were like, that's weird.
Right.
The actor from Jaws. The next day they got up and they found out that he had died.
Whoa.
That night. And this was the late 70s. This was prior to the 24-hour news cycle.
Like getting a text from your friend that says Quint died like 2 seconds after Quint died.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, basically they got a Ouija board text from...
Whoa. Was Robert Shaw like popular? Like was he an A-lister or B-lister?
I don't know. That name sounds so familiar to me. Let's see. Yeah, he was nominated for an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for his role as Henry VIII in A Man for All Seasons.
Okay.
He was in The Sting, From Russia with Love, the original taking of Pelham 123. So yeah, he had quite a track record.
Wow.
And yeah, he died. Whoa. 3 years after this movie came out. He was only 51. That's crazy.
No. Oh, that's young.
Yeah, because they were like, why is Robert Shaw, that guy from Jaws, what? And then the next day...
Heart attack.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, Ouija boards.
Interesting.
Yeah, my dad never touched one again after that.
Yeah.
Fuck.
We have a strict no Ouija board policy in my house.
Oh, same.
Same.
I mean, you may have heard about this on the podcast before, but Steven's always like, "Do you guys want to like do the Ouija board?" And I'm like, "Fuck no."
Yeah, no.
And I don't like as has been discussed on the podcast before. I don't really like believe in that, but also I'm just like, I don't want to fuck with it.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
No.
Let's not take that chance.
Yeah. All right, so Jaws, the first one, 1975. View it, cue it, or screw it. Allison with an I. I think we already know where you're going, so let's start with you.
View it.
View it.
Yeah, view it.
You will
Classic.
continue to. I
will
assume
continue to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And is now one of my daughter's comfort movies. So passing down the generational trauma of Jaws.
That's great. How does she feel about the ocean and sharks?
She loves it. She loves the ocean.
Okay.
She's fearless.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And again, I don't think it did the same thing to her that it did for me. And I don't know if it's because of the Cape Cod connection, but I'm sure that didn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
so you're just passing down the enjoyment, not the trauma.
enjoyment. No, not the trauma.
Yeah. I will jump on that boat. We're going to need a bigger boat because I'll jump on the View It boat. I thought this went super hard the first time I ever saw it, and it. Sometimes you see things when you're a teenager and it doesn't really hold up when you're older, but this still was a banger to me. Allyson-with-a-Y, the contrarian take. View it, cue it, or screw it.
I still have to give it a View It because of its cultural place. I think it's important to also understand human shark relations and to understand why we live in a society now that like generally fears sharks a lot. Like I feel like Shark Week wouldn't be a thing if Jaws had never been made.
Yeah. I mean, like probably Sharknado would not be a thing. Probably a lot of things would not be a thing.
Yeah.
Right. It just had such an effect on how we as a society view sharks that I think it's a really important movie to understand. And it definitely has enough redeeming qualities. While I don't find it scary, I still think it's a good film.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, 3 View It's for Jaws. And now we will move on to Jaws 2, which came out in 1978. Roy Scheider comes back again to play Brody. Richard Dreyfuss's character, whose name I'm blanking on right now, is kind of hilariously written out of the movie in one of those like throwaway lines. It's just like, oh, he's up in the Arctic. He's out of radio range.
Well, to be fair, that's where he was heading during Jaws 1.
That's fair.
Okay, all right. So there's
To be fair.
there's a plot reason for him not
yep.
being there.
There was continuity.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were also probably financial reasons
Yeah.
or some kind of reasons behind the scenes that he wasn't there, because I don't know why they wouldn't bring him back otherwise. Lorraine Gary is back again as Brody's wife, Ellen. And the setup here, we have the mayor is back too again, which I love.
The icon.
God, he's so good. But the setup here is essentially that another shark has detected Jaws's death essentially by like electromagnetic field shit and has come and has come to take revenge. And the sad part is that this is not the last time we're going to see this plot device used to set up the narrative of one of these movies. But Shark is back on Amity Island, and it's Brody's job to deal with the problem again. This one was kind of interesting to me because it felt like they were kind of trying to do a slasher thing with the shark a little bit more. We have this massive cast of teen characters, including the older versions of Brody's sons, who we see as children in the first film. They're teens now. They're surrounded by this gaggle of teens.
The younger one's a kid still.
Is he still in two?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like the younger like kid brother tagging along with the team.
He's like 10 or something now.
Something like that.
Yeah. And it just was such an odd setup to me because it felt like a Friday the 13th movie where you just have like 8 different anonymous like teen characters, and it's just like, okay, like at some point these characters are just going to get plowed through by Jason. And it was similar with this, where it was just like, I don't know, you really expect me to keep track of all these people based on like one affectation? It kind of lost me on that basis. How about you guys? How'd you feel about this one?
Yeah, I will say it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was expecting a lot more camp shit show kind of stuff. And I think tonally, other than the weird like teen comic relief stuff happening, it stayed fairly true to the original film in tone. The characters who were in the original film still seem to be very much the same. Yeah. And so like that was good to see. So it while it wasn't like great, and should they have made a sequel? Probably not. Mm-hmm. It wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had seen Jaws 2 in the past, and I can't remember how long ago it was, but when I watched it again, I remember thinking, oh yeah, I've seen this. Mm-hmm. Which I don't think I had seen 3, and I hadn't seen Revenge. So there was a familiarity there for me. But like being the mom of a 16-year-old, I can say that the behavior of that group of teens was very much accurate. You know, like reckless, doing dumb shit, you know, like ask for forgiveness, not permission. And they're out on the water and they have boats, and like they were very much like, I think it was acted well, like kids growing up on the ocean in a small community of boaters and fisher people would act, you know? So I thought that was like pretty accurate portrayal of their behavior, I suppose. None of it really surprised me. Like I was kind of like, yeah, I think those teenagers probably would do shit like that, you know, and put themselves in a precarious situation. I was glad that Brody and Ellen made a return, and I do think, like you said, Allison, with a Y, that that's funny, that their behavior was very much consistent with the characters that we knew from Jaws 1. So it felt like a sort of natural continuum of the storyline for me.
Yeah, I think it benefits a lot, especially from having Roy Scheider back, because he's just you just love his screen presence. He's just so warm and so stressed out all the time. You know, I don't know that anybody here is necessarily a big fan of cops, but he's a very, very lovable cop.
He is.
And he's always trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know,
he has really good intentions, and he seems like that great kind of like father figure character where he clearly cares for his kids. He cares for his community. And while he's like kind of tough, he's also vulnerable, and he admits his fears, and he absolutely carries the film.
He's got a great everyman energy. It's almost like it kind of reminds me of like John McClane in the original Die Hard. Like, it just seems like he's just a guy trying to do his fucking job and getting tripped up by a shark, and it's like, oh, god damn it.
And he was probably the only guy for the job in Jaws 2. Like, he had to get those kids out of their stickiest bullshit situation that was like boat crashes and explosions and people being knocked unconscious into the water and another shark eating a boat, which doesn't happen. A shark ate a boat in all 4 of these fucking movies, which they just don't do.
Dude, a shark eats a helicopter in this one.
Yes!
It's so great. Like, the helicopter is landing, and Allyson-with-a-Y and I were watching it together, and I forget which of us was like, is the shark going to eat the fucking helicopter? Yes, it is. And it actually, it's ridiculous, but it's more believable than certain shit that happens in the later 2 movies, because it just grabs one of the big, like, buoyant kind of things on the bottom of the helicopter that allow it to float on the ocean and just kind of like flips the whole helicopter upside down. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I mentioned the return of the mayor before, and it's enjoyable to have him back because he's such a great actor. He's so good at playing this character. But as Allison said, like, how is this man still the mayor? Like, how did no one go, yeah, you fucked up last time, buddy? Let alone he's still doing the same shit.
I mean, the polls are close this election. So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
We really haven't learned.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, who knows? Maybe there was a separate mayor after Jaws 1, and then they fucking reelected this guy.
The real horror.
Yeah, truly.
The real horror, right.
And I mean,
they need an interlude between the two and like what happened in the political landscape in Amityville.
It's like fun. It's, you know, it's still fun to watch this sort of push-pull between Brody and the mayor, but it's like, you know, we're just rehashing what was done in the first film, and it doesn't make a lot of logical sense.
I will say it had one of the more insane kills in this one. I think it was the beginning. These 2 women, one was driving a boat and the other one was water skiing. And as to be expected, the shark gets the water skier and the woman driving the boat doesn't know what happens. So she's like, oh, geez, where'd my friend go? Yeah. And then the shark comes and tries to eat the boat again. And in a weird attempt at self-defense, this woman ends up like pouring gasoline on herself. I'm assuming she was trying to get it on the shark, but she just straight up pours it on herself and then sets herself on fire because she's trying to shoot a flare gun at the shark. But then it's insane. It just balls to the wall.
Yeah. And then we end up with like Freddy Shark. His like face is burned.
Right.
Freddy Jaws. Yeah.
Freddy Jaws.
Oh, Chris would like this too because it would be wet Freddy. He loves when Freddy is extra wet. And this is like the wettest possible. Oh yeah, if you listen to our Nightmare on Elm Street episode,
when he's like goopy and
there's a whole runner about how wet or dry Freddy is, and Chris's theory is that the best Freddy movies are where Freddy is really wet.
Oh my god. We're gonna have to give that a listen.
Yeah.
How about the scene when Brody is like in front of the committee and they're just gaslighting the shit out of him, and they're like, you know, you have PTSD, which honestly he does.
He does.
Understandable.
You know, so that's gonna skew his view of reality, and he's gonna be gun shy, and he's gonna assume everything's a shark, but it fucking was a shark. And they put him in front of this committee in just like the most condescending way, and then like.
Isn't it like the city council or something? Yeah.
And he gets fired.
Yeah.
So now he's off.
Oh, right.
Now he's like gun and badge gone.
Punished Venom Brody.
Yeah, exactly. And just cowboying it out there to save these idiot teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is, as I indicated, like a flock of teenagers on the water being menaced by the shark at the end of this. There's an incredible screamer among these teens. I don't know if you all remember this, but there's one girl who just is one of the greatest true scream queens I've ever seen in a horror movie. She just goes for fucking broke. And like the first time she screams, it's a full on, like, you know, hands on cheeks, like the camera's on her. But then you hear her multiple times. Sometimes she's not even on screen. It's like, oh, there she is. Just
I'm not
unmistakable.
a good screamer. Are you a good screamer?
Oh yeah, I can do a blood curdling scream.
Can you?
Yeah.
Oh man. I'm gonna have to do that off camera. I'm not a good screamer.
That'll be Patreon content. The scream off.
That's paid content.
Yeah.
How about the final Jaws kill in this movie?
It's pretty dope.
It was pretty dope. And
Yeah.
you know, I like how they weaved the storyline through
Chekhov's electrical cable that just happens to be laying exposed on the bottom of the ocean.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was satisfied with that. It felt tangible.
Yeah, it's silly, but it's fun. It's a unique new way to kill the shark.
Yep.
Because Brody ends up pulling this electrical cable out of the water, essentially, and getting the shark to bite down on it. And wait, does he sever it then? No, I think just biting down on it is enough to fuck it up and electrocute it. Yeah.
I feel like there was a gunshot too.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And then Brody conveniently falls in a rubber boat, which I found very realistic. I liked that very much, because otherwise I was like, oh, Brody's ass would have gotten fucking toasted by this.
Yeah, it was satisfying.
I also have in my notes, in all caps, a Christian film, because towards the end of this, like when all hope seems to be lost, one of the teens, it might even be the screaming girl I was talking about before, like we linger on her, like giving a detailed, like, please God, like it's a whole speech. It's not just like, oh God, oh Jesus, whatever, but she's like addressing God. I feel like her hands may even be in prayer position. She's like looking up at the sky, asking him to save the kids from the shark. And it felt very intentional to me that like God intervenes. God sends Brody to save the teenagers from the shark. And
pick up on that one.
Yeah, neither did I.
It was a little weird, actually. Kirk Cameron's Jaws too.
Oh God.
Exactly.
One of the kills that I found was just like not necessary, and this was really sad, was the teen girl who actually seemed semi-responsible and was trying to protect the younger brother, and then she just gets full body eaten in front of this child.
Yeah.
That was heartbreaking, because like she actually seemed to be like one of the more responsible teenagers, and it's just like, why can't you like off one of the annoying ones instead? And then I just kept thinking about how this poor child is going to be stuck with this trauma, of watching this woman trying to protect him getting eaten in front of him. Oh, that was hard.
I wonder how many of the victims are male versus female, like over the course of the 4 movies. Because just thinking about it right now, it seems female heavy.
This film in particular, yeah.
And the first one.
Oh, yeah.
The first, scene on the beach, it was a girl.
Yeah.
I wonder. Kill count. We'll have to do it.
Do we have any shark facts for this movie?
Shark fact. Sharks have electroreceptors, and they can actually detect pretty low levels of electromagnetic fields, and this helps them hunt. So if there is a fish underneath the sand, they can detect, because all living beings give off some sort of electromagnetic field. And so they can detect these even very low levels. So even when they can't see very well and there's nothing for them to necessarily smell, they can still detect these electromagnetic fields coming off of living creatures. And that's how they'll hunt some fish that like bury themselves in the sand. So there is some scientific truth behind this part of Jaws.
Incredible.
Yeah. Love it.
I mean, probably a shark still wouldn't be like, my brother shark got killed.
Absolutely
I can
not.
feel the electro shit in the water. I'm coming to take revenge.
Maybe sharks like 50 years from now, though, if we keep at the rate.
Oh, yeah. They'll be fucking mutant sharks.
Oh, God.
Then we'll get a new Jaws franchise for sure.
For sure.
All right, well, Jaws 2... View it, cue it, or screw it. Allison-with-an-I went last time. Allison-with-a-Y, would you like to start this time?
I think it deserves a cue it in the very least. It's not completely irredeemable. The one kill we were talking about before with the woman on the boat, like that alone, I think everybody should see that. But yeah, cue it.
Yeah. Allison-with-an-I?
Yeah, it's a cue it for me. If you liked Jaws, then it's a good follow-up. It's not a masterpiece. It's not an instant classic. But it's a decent sequel. What about you?
I'm going to have to go screw it, actually. I didn't... and it's not like a screw it, fuck it, damn it, or a screw it with prejudice. It's just there wasn't enough here for me to really recommend anybody spend time with it. like it's trying to do Jaws again. It's trying to do this teenager stuff that just didn't really click for me. There are a few fun moments which we've discussed already, but I don't know, just not something I can really recommend anybody spend time on. But that brings us to the source of the sound drop for Shark Facts, the Shark War that you've already heard probably too many times. Jaws 3 or Jaws 3D. It does say Jaws 3 if you look it up, but then in the opening credits it says 3D. Jaws 3D
exclamation
as
point.
A fucking severed fish head floats into the foreground.
Oh, so good.
Oh, so dumb.
Awesomely bad. Awesomely bad.
So fun.
So dumb.
So dumb.
And I mean, also, I kind of wanted to touch on this with Jaws 2, but really, I mean, no fucking surprise, but shit gets gorier and gorier as this franchise goes on, because they're trying to go for shock value, which is another thing that really stands out to me about the first Jaws, is there's not a ton of gore. There are some shocking moments, where you just see the hand of one of the corpses sticking up from the sand with crabs crawling over it,
or bloody water,
right? And it's enough to make you shudder, but it's not here, motherfucker, here's a severed arm floating towards you in 3D.
Yeah, exactly.
It's they're trying to just go for the shock value more and more as this goes on. But Jaws 3D is set at fucking SeaWorld.
Right.
And I spent a lot of time...
with none other than Shamu.
Right.
Yeah, name drop
Shamu.
Shamu.
And I spent a lot of time going, wait, is this actual... Yeah, it's actual SeaWorld.
I had to Google it as well.
And I'm shocked. I don't think SeaWorld would allow this to be done today. I'm surprised that they allowed it to be done then, to have all this carnage going on at SeaWorld. You would think that they would consider that bad for the brand, but I guess not.
Oh, God. First, didn't SeaWorld close? I think it's not still a thing.
SeaWorld still exists?
It does, but I think that documentary, was it Blackfin or something? Yeah, I think that had some serious impacts as far as how they actually treat their animals now.
Yeah.
Yeah, SeaWorld still exists.
Oh,
yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one is about the eldest, I believe, of Brody's sons, right? Is played by
Michael.
Yeah, is played by Dennis Quaid, and he works at SeaWorld now. And his younger brother is also in... Wait, does he work at SeaWorld too?
No, he just comes to visit.
He just comes to hang out.
Yeah, Sean has been going to school in Colorado
and
to
he's
get as far away from the ocean as possible.
Yeah.
As far inland.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the female character is great. The scientist, the marine biologist.
Yeah.
She kind of carries.
She's cool.
She kind of
She's
carries
cool.
the acting.
Yeah. Dennis Quaid, reportedly, I learned, was at the height of his coke addiction when he was filming this movie, and he has said that every single scene that made it into this movie, every single shot that made it into this movie, he was high on coke.
Wow.
Which makes a lot of sense, at least in some scenes. It's okay, yeah, you got big coke energy here, buddy.
Big coke energy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old he was supposed to be, his character was supposed to be, but he just doesn't look young ever at any age to me. Dennis Quaid just never looks young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is by far the youngest I've seen him in a movie, but he still definitely doesn't look whatever age he's supposed to be playing.
Yeah, so this came out in 83, so a smooth 8 years after the original film, and I'm like, this kid did not grow up that fast.
Like a 30-year-old man.
It's kind of like the newer X-Men films where it's they age a decade in each of those 3 or 4 movies, and it's no one has aged more than 2 years. Yeah. You cannot tell me that Xavier has aged 10 years between First Class and Days of Future Past, I'm trying to remember how or why the fuck the shark gets into SeaWorld in the first place.
It just gets in through a gate.
Yeah, like a faulty gate.
So it's just an accident. It's not like a thing where it's the shark has intentionally come there as it does in 2 and 4.
So the premise is that there's a more juvenile shark that
Oh,
they
right.
think is the problem.
It's a red herring
It's
shark.
a total red herring
Yeah.
shark. And they have that explorer guy from England
Yeah.
and his little minion.
Yeah.
Who are pretty central to the plot
Yeah.
because he's trying to exploit, the shark and its presence in SeaWorld by extension.
Yeah.
And then, there's a red herring, more juvenile shark. But in fact, that's not the shark.
Yeah.
Causing all the problems.
Because they catch that one very early on, and then it's kind of your typical setup. Well, kind of like when they catch the first shark in the original Jaws, where the mayor's like, "Oh, look at this, we got it," and Brody's like, "That bite is not close to big enough."
This is way too small.
Right.
Ooh, can I do a shark fact?
Yes.
Okay, so to preface this, in this film, they catch the smaller shark and try to keep it in captivity. But shark fact is that great white sharks cannot be kept in captivity. There's only been one time where they were able to keep a great white shark alive in captivity for about, I think it was 9 months, and then they released it. But every other great white shark that they've tried to keep in captivity has died in captivity, which is super sad. So they just don't even attempt it anymore.
And that was sort of alluded to by that marine biologist, female
Yes.
lead. She was like, well, instead of killing it and you get the one shot, we could have it in captivity, which has never been done, which was historically, factual based on what you just said. And we could get shots for years and years of it, So she's desperately kind of trying to keep this shark alive. God bless her.
Yeah.
She's like one of the best characters.
Her intentions were really good.
Yeah, they were. That's cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a couple of dolphin characters in this movie, Cindy and Sandy, who play pretty crucial roles.
Cindy and Sandy, we love.
There's even like a chase where Cindy and Sandy are chasing after Jaws with humans hanging on to. Oh yeah, because that's how they get away from Jaws. Like they
use them as like torpedoes.
Yeah, they like call for Cindy and Sandy and then grab onto their fins, and the dolphins help them escape Jaws, which is fucking ridiculous, but actually not too ridiculous, I guess. I mean, these dolphins are trained to like have humans hang onto their fins.
Dolphins
and swim
are
around.
extremely intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
They are.
Oh, yeah.
And they are a feared sort of enemy of sharks because of how smart they are and how agile they are. And they travel
Dolphins
in pods
will
and-
attack sharks.
Absolutely. And dolphins
Shark
will
fact.
alert. Shark fact. Dolphins will alert humans. And there's, it's recorded in history that dolphins have sort of alerted humans to the presence of like danger in the ocean.
Wow.
With some of their behaviors.
Huh.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
And they stay alive, which I love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they get a fucking freeze frame shot, like biggest 80s energy at the end of this, where they jump up out of the water, again, gratuitous 3D shit towards the camera, and then you get like a freeze frame of them. Like, I think they're kind of like perfectly symmetrical around our two human leads. It's ridiculous, but great.
Yeah.
One thing I did appreciate about this film was the what was it, the CEO of SeaWorld?
Oh, yeah.
And this is, I'm sure, because of the ties to SeaWorld. Like, they didn't want to have, like, an evil character head up SeaWorld. But he was empathetic, and instead of being like, we need to deny what's going on to, like, not make people afraid. Like, he actually was concerned about his people a lot more than the mayor had been, and was concerned for the well-being of the visitors as well. So I appreciated that in this film. I think it's too easy with these films a lot to like have the same archetypes come through, and so it was a nice change up.
Like, is he going to be another mayor figure?
Exactly.
Right, yeah, because you could have just done the same shit over again. It's Louis Gossett Jr., who's a fucking king, and he's great in this.
Interesting.
And actually, I think I read that his character was supposed to die very early on, maybe like one of the first deaths. And they liked him and his performance so much that they like expanded his role, and he became this sort of hero in the script. And I mean, the amount of, sort of collaboration that I'm sure they had to do with SeaWorld to work on this. I wouldn't be surprised if someone was like, oh yeah, make the like park head honcho more of a hero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
that scene where they were trapped in like the tube.
Yeah.
Where the visitors of SeaWorld could walk through this plastic tube that was in the ocean. I thought, first of all, that was badass.
Yeah.
I would love to go through that.
I would never
I feel
do
like
that.
they have something similar at Shed Aquarium. I think there's a little walkthrough area that I remember thinking when I was in there. Like, I think there was a scene in one of the Jaws movies where this was kind of like the vibe.
Yeah.
But that was scary.
Yeah.
Like that moment of like you're relying on the glass to keep you from being part of the deep ocean. It was terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's one thing when you're in an aquarium and it's inside a building, but this is just a big like plexiglass tube in the literal ocean.
Yeah.
You're like walking through, and of course the shark is ramming its fucking head into the tube while a bunch of people are in there on opening day. I also want to mention that this was one of the writers on this film is a horror legend, who I mentioned already once on this episode, Richard Matheson, who wrote, I Am Legend and so many iconic Twilight Zone episodes, and not his finest work. Not his finest work. And he actually, when I was looking this up, he said that I believe the producers wanted the Brody brothers to be the main characters of this, and he said that he thought that was dumb, quote unquote. But he, Richard Matheson got to eat, and he wrote the script based on what they told him to do. But just so strange.
That is a strange,
so weird
mashup.
Yeah. We have an incredible shark kill in this movie. We have one of multiple exploding sharks in this franchise, and perhaps the most... no, actually, that's fucking wrong. The most ridiculous shark explosion is in the last one. Mm-hmm. But in this one, again, 3D, we have a giant, chunk of shark, mandible. Its jaw flies towards the camera after they blow it up. That was... stupid and a good time,
I think this was the worst of the animatronic sharks. I think 3 was the worst of them.
I actually think The Revenge is worse.
Really?
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, it was bad. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I think 4 was worse.
I mean, I think they just get progressively worse as the movies go along, really.
Yeah, the budget gets smaller.
Yeah. Well, and also they probably get overconfident with what they can do with the shark, I think the strength of the first one is Spielberg knows it doesn't necessarily look great all the time, so he's smart about how he deploys it, and these other ones are just here's a fucking plastic shark head in your face.
Maybe that's true, because there were several times during this film where I was like, a shark wouldn't do that. A shark wouldn't behave that way. A shark wouldn't swim that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't just stand still in the water, waiting for it just doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And it bugged me. This film bugged me more than others about how scientifically inaccurate it was. Did you learn anything about sharks before you made this, or are you just here for the gratuitous horror and gore? Yeah.
You're just making a movie monster.
Yeah, exactly.
While we were watching this film, I kept thinking, I wonder if in part SeaWorld, agreed to be a part of this was so they could show it in their own parks. Because when I was a kid, the one time my family went to SeaWorld, we went to go see we went into a movie there, and it was called a 4D movie where you get the 3D effects on the screen, and then also you get water squirted at you, and your seats kind of move, and you get air blown at you. And I was I wonder if they showed this at SeaWorld ever with the 4D sort of thing. It felt just ripe for that.
Oh yeah.
What a missed opportunity if not.
I know. SeaWorld.
Oh,
bring it back.
Open. Yeah. I'd go.
The SeaWorld thing to me also kind of reminds me of how much fucking gratuitous product placement there is throughout this franchise. And I think this movie being set at SeaWorld and you seeing the fucking SeaWorld logo and whatever is probably the worst example of it. But there's so much Wheaties on the table with the logo very clearly displayed. And I think Coke, there's just a lot of that going on in these movies. I think maybe even the first one, honestly, which is a bit of a surprise. But definitely the last 3 are crazy on that front.
What would the first one be? One of the whiskey bottles where he pours a pint glass of whiskey or wine?
Cuddy Sark. Cuddy Sark.
Sponsored by Cuddy Sark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
All right. What would we rate Jaws 3D? I'll go first this time. I'm going to give this one a Q. I think this movie is fucking stupid. It's it's so far from the energy of the original Jaws. It's just a dumb movie. It almost has Final Destination energy to me. Probably because there was an actual 3D Final Destination movie where, again, the point of the movie is to throw shit at your face. Except in this one, because it's the 80s, there's so many scenes where something just kind of slowly drifts towards your face.
Until the last scene.
This doesn't seem that exciting. Yeah, true. Until the last scene when the shark jaw just into your face. It's a weird fucking movie, but it's such an interesting kind of change of pace, both tonally and in terms of the setting, that I actually kind of enjoyed it. It's Jaws, but make it stupid, but not as stupid as the one we're about to discuss, though. It didn't quite get to offensively stupid for me. So I had some fun with it. It's not a masterpiece. Don't go running to check this out on Netflix before whenever they pull it off the service, but I had fun. Allison with an I, what did you think?
I can't decide. I think my gut says screw it.
Mm-hmm.
just because, the first one was so good.
Yeah.
It feels just like it's getting more diluted every single iteration. And I was disappointed, I think. I did like some of the characters. I thought the acting was decent. But the 3D stuff, it's like, what are you doing? You're taking a movie that was a masterpiece that should have been left alone. And now you're trying to create another one of those, which will never happen. And you're adding some like weird thing that people are trying out in the year, 1983. It just felt like it was taunting a little bit.
Gimmicky.
It's gimmicky. Yeah. It's going to be a screw it for me.
Yeah. Allison-with-a-Y.
I have to give it a cue it because, like, as bad as it was, I had a really fun time watching it. It's one of those I can't even freaking call it a film. It's one of those movies that I feel like is fun to get together with your friends and watch and just meme about when you're together. It's entertaining. It's terrible, but I would have a movie night where I screened it. Because I think it's one of those movies that nobody would think about to watch on their own. And then it's like, no, you don't know how ridiculous this is. Just you wait. So because of that, I have to give it a cue it.
All right. Respect.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the final stop on our journey. Jaws: The Revenge, the fourth and final installment in this franchise from 1987. And in this one... We're back to the Brody family again. Lorraine Gary is back as Ellen Brody, Chief Brody's wife. The chief, is dead in this movie of a heart attack, but it's also weirdly ambiguous because people refer multiple times to how the shark killed him.
Yeah.
And I guess we're just to assume that like the stress of everything that had gone down with the shark led him to eventually have a heart attack. I don't know. The brothers are back, but the youngest one bites it very early on, or gets bitten, really.
Yeah.
Early on.
Shocking.
It was shocking.
It was a bit
I didn't
shocking.
see that coming.
Nor did I.
Yeah. Kind of just gets his arm torn off and then...
Bleeds out.
Yeah, disappears, sinks.
I actually thought he was
drowns.
going to survive. I don't know, because you didn't
Yeah.
see the shark didn't eat him.
Right.
Like, clearly he's going to die in real life because he's lost that much blood, but I thought he was going to pull through. I was
Movie
shocked.
magic. Yeah, you thought he was gonna pull through.
Yeah. And yet again, we have this plot device around a shark has come to take revenge, as the title suggests, for what the Brodies did to Jaws. And it follows them down to the Bahamas because Mike's the older brother, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Mike is now down there doing research on conch shells with Mario Van Peebles. And yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of plot to this. That was the thing that really struck me is a lot of this is just devoted weirdly to Lorraine Gary and Michael Caine having a romance. Yeah.
So weird.
And poor Ellen was just riddled with PTSD and anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
She just couldn't even.
I'm so angry.
Get that woman away from water.
Yeah.
I'm so angry with what they did to her character. Not that losing multiple family members, at least in her mind, to this shark wouldn't really mess somebody up, but she went from this really strong character in the first two movies to just this absolute, I don't even know how to describe her. She's just, girl's a mess.
Girl is a mess. She's traumatized.
She's really traumatized, but she's lost all of her fight, her tenacity that she had. And it's like her whole personality now is just being afraid. And I understand that is something that trauma can do, but it was just, I don't know.
Her whole personality is just trauma. So basically it's an A24 movie.
It was disappointing to see this strong character kind of take that.
I agree.
That route.
I really liked her in Jaws 1. I really liked what she brought to the movie. I thought she was a perfect partner to Brody because he was so lovable and she was a perfect counterpart. And she was just a hot mess by 4. Poor thing is just begging her family to choose any other career in the whole wide world, and they just can't.
Yeah. Trying to keep everyone away from the water, trying to keep her one remaining son out of the water, trying to keep her granddaughter out of the water. I do think Lorraine Gary did very well with the material she was handed. Like, I think this is still a really good performance. But yeah, I agree. There's not so much to the character in this one.
Young Michael Caine, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, always a hottie.
Always.
Love Michael Caine.
Yeah, he's a classic.
Interesting. I've never like viewed Michael Caine as a hottie necessarily.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Really?
he was handsome.
Ooh.
Yeah. He's a good-looking guy.
All right. I like how he's always had the same voice.
Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously everyone has the same voice for their whole life, but like young Michael Caine doesn't really sound much different from like old ass like Alfred Michael Caine.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
Yeah. Also, I have in my notes, horny movie in all caps with like a bunch of exclamation points. Like, Michael and his wife are just always trying to have sex in this. Ellen is pretty horny with Michael Caine, honestly.
Michael's
She's always been horny.
Yeah, oh yeah. Her and Chief Brody were always looking to
Yeah.
get
You wanna
it on
fool
in those
around?
first. Yeah, you want to fool
I
around?
love that line. I love that line.
charming.
It was.
So
I would have
charming.
been disappointed, but hilared. That's not a word.
Hilared.
If she
Hilarified, I think is
hilarified,
maybe what you're looking for.
yassified. If she brought that back and
Yassified.
forth with Michael Caine, that was the one callback. I was like, say it.
Oh, that was her line with
back.
that was her line with
I
hubby,
know,
though.
yeah, that
she
sucks.
couldn't
Yeah,
say
that
that to
would be-
anyone else.
That would be wrong.
Yeah. She should have just asked him, "Wanna fuck?" have a new line for the two of them. But yeah, I don't know. I just personally I feel like there's so little to talk about in this movie. Oh, actually, so Allison-with-an-I, I feel like it's time for you to make your confession about this movie.
I haven't seen the end. Well, first of all, it's not on Netflix, guys. So
That's right. Yeah,
the one that's not.
we watched all four just for completionism's sake. But yeah, you can only find the first three on Netflix right now. And you had a wonky stream.
I
right?
did. Well,
Yeah.
so I had texted Patrick. He was like, "What's your status?" And I said, "Oh, I watched. I'm almost done with all the three of them." And he's like, "There's four." And I was like, "Fuck." And he's like, "And it's not on Netflix." And I was like, "Amazing."
Yeah.
So I have access to stream movies that aren't on Netflix. Again, FBI, listen away. But I didn't get a good stream because not a lot of people are streaming this movie.
Right.
No.
So I had a good enough that I watched, I think, up until the last 20 minutes, but I missed the big kill scene. So you guys will have to clue me in.
Yeah, I think we need to get to that right now. This movie is so fucking weird in the action scenes because many of them are just, it's terrible action filmmaking. Like, it's just impossible to tell what has actually happened. And the big climax of this movie, they're all on a boat and Jaws breaks off I'm sure I'm using the wrong term, but the mast of the boat, like the big fucking pole that sticks out in front
Ellen
of the boat.
rams him
Yeah.
with the mast.
Which has already been broken off, so it's more of like a sharp weapon.
Yeah.
And then
It's like a jousting stick.
and then he explodes.
Yep.
But the storytelling of this is what Chris would call cinematic malpractice. It's just you have to put the pieces together in your mind because it is so hard to tell what has actually happened. And that idea of the shark actually being impaled, let alone connecting it to it exploding like a fucking bomb, the narrative is not there in the visual.
Big chaotic energy, that
Very
scene.
chaotic. Very chaotic.
So right before that happened, Mario Van Peebles' character Jake is trying to, I think, stun the shark and loses his balance and falls into the shark's mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Which was just like horrifying because, like, Jake was one of like the highlights of the movie for me. I really liked this character.
Oh, yeah. Allison was like screaming, like, no, when he died.
So upset. But he doesn't die. After they kill the shark, even though you see this man go into the shark's mouth, there's all this blood in the water. After the shark dies, he pops up just down the ocean and is like, "Hey guys,
I'm okay."
And then there's like this funny exchange between him and Michael. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Very like, let's go home. End of an action movie, like buddy energy.
yeah, I wasn't gonna let that shark kill me. Like, who would help you with your research kind of vibe. Just
Oh
like,
my God.
well, this man is like basically almost missing an arm.
Okay, I still need to finish it. I have to.
I've
I've tried a couple times since and it hasn't worked, but it's on my list.
You should at least look up, I bet it's on YouTube, just the shark death scene,
Oh, yeah.
because
Good
it's
call,
one
good
of the strangest things, and strangest and most outrageous things I've ever seen in an film.
And film.
Yeah. The only other thing I really think I have to say about this, since we've been talking about the cuties in these movies, is Michael, hottie. Big hottie in
total
this
hottie.
movie.
Cute bohemian like wife too.
Yes.
Cute couple.
Oh,
They were a
very
hot
cute.
couple.
Yeah.
Hot couple. Yeah, I was very into Michael.
He looks like, I said this to Allison, I don't know, Allison-with-an-I, I don't know if this will track for you or if you even know what he looks like, but he looks like Father John Misty. Very much like Father John Misty to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do a Google side by side.
Similar hair, similar build, similar vibe.
Really intense eyes.
Well,
big
Brody was a
forehead.
hottie,
Brody was a hottie.
and
Yeah.
Alan's beautiful.
Yeah.
They were bound to have some cute kids.
I
Yeah,
know.
You know?
absolutely. Absolutely.
I do love like a Cape Cod boy too. It's a type.
I also liked how one thing I liked about this was that ferry comes back again. You see the Amity Island ferry in I think 1, 2, and 4, and there's just something I like about the continuity of seeing that same ferry, the same color, and semi-important things happen on that ferry in all 3 movies. I don't think it shows up in the 3rd one.
Yeah.
But I liked that.
Can I do my last shark fact?
You have a shark fact.
I do. All right. Shark fact. This one is not fun. So, since 1970, the worldwide shark population has declined by about an estimated 70%.
Shit.
And there are 100 million sharks killed per year by people.
Damn.
A lot of them for, the fishing industry. And it's really sad. And, you cannot obviously blame a film on this, but it certainly influenced people just feeling okay with, killing sharks at such a rate. But yeah, that's really sad.
I feel like I read in the last year or two that shark fishing was outlawed in a country that had previously had way too much, like shark fin soup.
Japan,
country.
I think, or yes.
Like the regulations have gotten a lot stricter in the last
Yes.
couple of years. I remember reading that headline and maybe even an article about it, but feeling like that's a step in the right direction.
Because shark fin soup is horrifying. They
It is
literally
horrifying.
they catch the shark, they cut the fins off, and then they just release the body back to the ocean, and the
Which
shark
is basically
just slowly
just chum
bleeds
at that
out.
point.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
It is horrifying.
Yikes. Wow, yeah, that really wasn't fun. Thanks.
Sorry.
Bummer, Allison. The why.
But I thought it was an important piece of
It
information
is.
to
It
put out
is.
there.
Yeah.
It is important.
Because we love sharks.
Me too.
We're educating. We're changing hearts and minds. All right. So, anyways, let's review this film, and I think it's. I just find this really funny for context. This has a 2% Rotten Tomatoes score, which is. I know there are 0% movies out there too, but this is certainly one of the lowest Rotten Tomatoes scores that I've ever seen. Allison-with-a-Y, would you like to start this time? View it, cue it, or screw it for Jaws: The Revenge.
This is going to be a screw it for me. It's just a little bit too much of a snoozer. And there's not a lot of redeeming qualities for this film other than some of the eye candy.
Allison-with-an-I?
Yeah, screw it. It's a screw it again for me.
Yeah.
It's too far gone.
Yeah.
If you've got budget for a movie, don't make this movie. Absolutely. It's not even kind of good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I of course I'm going to jump on that train. There's nothing to watch this for. Watch the fucking YouTube clip of the shark kill at the end, because again, just one of the most poorly done things I've seen in a film. And again, just insane that was the concept is we're going to impale the shark on the mast of this boat, which is sticking way out of the fucking water. It's not even down on the shark's level, and then the shark will explode. It's a lot. And the other sort of offensive thing about this is that it really tries to pull hard on the emotional connection that we have to the original Jaws, because there's a bunch of little clips from original Jaws. You see Roy Scheider in a bunch of flashbacks, and we even have Michael reenacting the sort of famous scene of in the first Jaws, you have this really cute scene where Brody is at the table with the young kid Sean, and he's, like, his head is in his hands, and then he slowly realizes his kid is just like copying all his movements. It's a really charming, well acted moment between them. And of all things, they decide to restage this between Michael and his kid in this movie, and it's just like, y'all got nothing here.
Yeah.
You got nothing.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad, bad, bad. All right. So one of our final tasks here, and we're going to have a special little bonus segment to close this out, actually, that we came up with midstream here. But first, we're going to review the franchise as a whole. Would you view, cue, or screw this experience of watching all 4 Jaws movies? And we'll start with you this time, Allison-with-an-I.
I've never reviewed a whole franchise with you guys before, so this is a little bit of a different rating system for my brain.
Yeah.
The whole thing, ugh.
That tells you everything.
I feel bad saying screw it because it includes the first one, but just watch the first one.
Yeah.
So it's a screw it for me for the whole thing. I was exhausted by the end of 4. I was like, I don't ever want to watch another shark movie for a while.
I think I got to go with that too. It's just the third one is fun in a weird way, but. Yeah, it's just such a steep decline from the first one, and I can't really recommend anyone spend their time on all 4. How about you, Allison-with-a-Y?
I think I have to, in the spirit of trying to meet it where it's at, give it a cue it. I think if you want to, take on the task yourself of watching a horror franchise, I think it's a manageable one to do. All 3 of the following ones after the original, like there's moments where you can find entertainment. So I think in that sense, I can't fully give it a screw it. It's not a high cue it though.
Yeah.
It's like if you really want to watch an entire horror franchise, then I would say, you know what, this is not the worst one that you could do. And that's why it's a low cue it for me.
I agree with that.
I like that. And actually, like I've got some friends that are like, I can do like mild salsa horror. And this might be that. Yeah. Because it's not
mild salsa horror.
I actually came up with that.
I like that.
Because I've got some friends that I'm like, it's kind of medium salsa. This one's hot. You shouldn't do this one.
Yeah.
Like a Hereditary or like
Pace salsa horror.
It's space picante. Yeah, exactly. This is a kind of mild salsa.
Cantina style horror.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's an easier watch than like the, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we close out this little adventure, we're going to do a quick segment here that Allison-with-a-Y dreamed up in between our coffee breaks and Irish coffee breaks and pee breaks and vape breaks for this episode. We are going to each pick our favorite shark.
I feel like you have to start this off.
Basking sharks.
Interesting.
Basking. I've never heard of this.
Huge mouth.
Oh, they're so beautiful. So they mostly live in the Mediterranean, or maybe exclusively.
Wait. You have to say shark fact before you talk about them.
Shark fact. Basking sharks live in the Mediterranean, and they are these giant, slow-moving beauties. And they're called basking sharks because they have these giant mouths that they just have open when they slowly move through the water, just collecting plankton, krill, stuff like that. And they are just gorgeous. I do have a runner-up, though, which is the Greenland shark, which are very, very, very massive, huge, old sharks. They live to be like hundreds of years old, and they can't see anything, and they just kind of like boop around in the cold ocean waters, and I'm kind of obsessed with them.
Aw. Basking sharks and Greenland sharks?
Yeah.
Okay. Allison-with-an-I?
So I said something earlier, and I'm taking it back because I didn't want to come off as basic bitch, but I'm going to be a basic bitch and say the great white.
Oh,
okay.
I'm going to say the great white because it's the shark that I was most scared of my whole life. It's the shark that I feel like I've studied the most to get over that fear and replace fear with facts. And it's just a badass motherfucker. It's a perfect species. It does exactly what it was made to do perfectly.
Yeah.
With some obviously error because of us humans, manufacturing environments that are not good for it. But I do also have a runner-up, which is the whale shark, which is the largest of all sharks and can get up to 65 feet.
Whoa. Would you say that's a shark fact?
I would say shark fact.
I just want as many excuses
Whale
to put
sharks.
the shark growl in here as I can.
Is the largest of all the sharks. Can get up to 65 feet and 75,000 pounds.
Holy shit.
And I like anything spotty, and it's spotty.
Beautiful.
You know, like and it's like the shark from A Life Aquatic. Yeah, that's like the shark that they're after. And you see it, and it's animated,
Yeah.
but it's amazing.
Hell yeah.
Yep, and he's a harmless little guy, but a harmless big guy.
Well, mine, because I don't know as many shark facts as you two do, this is kind of a bullshit answer, but I don't know anything about sharks. I didn't have a favorite shark, but then I thought about the Legos that I liked to play with when I was a kid, and there was a little like plastic sawtooth shark that had like a big saw on its nose, and I was like, wait, is that an actual shark? Yes and no. There is a creature called a sawfish, also known as a carpenter shark, which does have that big saw-toothed nose. It is not technically a shark. It is a ray.
But rays and sharks are related.
Cousins.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you think it counts for favorite shark?
Yes.
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll let it
Okay.
slide.
All right. All
Oh
right.
my gosh.
So
There's
that-
some ugly motherfucking sharks out there. The goblin shark.
Oh my God. Stuff of nightmares. I am infinitely more scared of running into a goblin shark than great white, even though I should be more afraid of the great white, but fuck, if I saw a goblin shark,
Yeah.
I'd shit
Oh.
myself.
I would shit myself too.
It looks-
They are really ugly. Sorry sharks.
It
It's not your
looks
fault.
kind of like the xenomorph, honestly, because it looks like it has two mouths, basically.
Yes. I absolutely.
And like a hammerhead is an ugly shark.
Oh, I like
His
them.
eyes, like he
I
looks
think they're
cartoonish.
cute.
He's cute because we love sharks, but like aesthetically,
Fair.
how did you get that head?
Fair.
What do you need to accomplish with a head like that?
Hammerheads are dope.
Like evolutionarily, what is it doing for you?
Yeah, I'm sure something important, but
Yeah, I'm sure.
we'll save that shark fact for the next time that we do a shark movie.
Oh, and there is this one. It's like, okay, like think of like the sawtooth shark of your nightmares. There's an extinct species, and I had to look it up just to double check, and it's called the helicoprian shark. It's basically like a buzz saw on the bottom of its mouth.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like a circular, like bottom jaw with all these like razor sharp teeth on it.
That's Spiral from the Book of Shark. Damn.
Book of Shark.
All right, well, it's time for us to close this book of Shark. But before we wrap things up here, I will encourage you, as always, to go to our broken website, Every Horror Movie on Netflix.com. We'll get Chris to fix it one of these years or decades. Regardless, you actually can still buy Amon shirts and other merchandise if you click on the store link out there. We would love to make the $2 that we make off of those, and also love to see you wearing them out in the world, repping the show. Also, follow us on social media at AmonCast, EHMONcast. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's where you go if you want to buy my comic, Our House, or if you want to tell us what your favorite shark is, what your favorite Jaws movie is, how you feel about this franchise. We always love to hear from you. And another good place to discuss this franchise in this episode, if you feel so moved, is our Discord community. There's a link to it in the show notes. We've got folks from all over the world out there who enjoy talking not just about this podcast, but about horror movies, horror books, and horror in general. And lastly, go to your podcast provider of choice, leave us a review, follow us. We always love to see the feedback, but as always, 5 stars is the minimum rating that we will accept. We want to hear your feedback, but don't be too honest with us. All right. Thank you all for going on this watery journey with us. Happy Halloween to all the listeners out there. For Every Horror Movie on Netflix, I'm Patrick.
I'm Allison with a Y.
I'm Allison with an I, and it's been a pleasure, Allison with a Y.
This has been really lovely,
Yeah.
Allison with an I.
We should do it again sometime.
Yeah.
A historic meeting, and I don't think it'll be the last.
Yay.
All right, happy Halloween, everybody, and don't go back in the water.